much admired for her beauty and her crochet. There's cricket, and there's horse racing, and there's open-air amateur theatricals, and there's winter draws-in, there's snipe and duck shooting, skating and snowman making. The foxhounds are taken out to hunt the jackals, those that haven't been eaten in the Kojak passes, they all starve to death. And Alexander Burns, the rather dashing young British deputy governor, gets into his kilt and dances Scottish reels to the bagpipes, and does the Highland Fling on a table for New Year's night at Hogmanay. So it's kind of, business as usual. And it looks as if the whole thing is going to be very easy. But then the British develop a taste for the Afghan women. This is not a good idea. Anyone in this audience that ever finds themselves in Kabul, behave yourselves, because one of the lessons of history is it's not a good idea to interfere with the women of Afghanistan. And in due course, this is emphatically not the case in this case, because when Alexander Burns seduces the rather attractive girlfriend of a young Afghan buck called Abdullah Khan Achakzai, it's going to end in tears, you just know it, and indeed it does. And Abdullah Khan Achakzai accuses the British of turning Kabul into an enormous brothel. In actual fact, there does seem to be an incredible amount of traffic, nightly traffic, between the town and the cantonment. And the Afghan women have been earning a little bit of spare cash on the side. And this offends every notion of Afghan honour, and it's the final tipping point. There's all sorts of other things, of course, the British have been doing. They've been trying to found a standing army, a professional standing army, and they've done this and paid for it by taking away the the estates and the jagirs from the nobles, who old nobles have lost their estates. There's a whole range of things they've done to piss off the Afghans, but the final thing is the women. So Abdullah Khan Achakzai summons a jirga, a secret jirga, in the centre of Kabul. This is the account of Mirza Atta, which is one of the most fantastic sources I find. Incidentally, I haven't said this at the beginning, the kind of main historiographical point of this book is to tell this story for the first time using the Afghan sources. And in the course of extended journeys around Afghanistan in 2009 and 2010, I located from libraries in Kabul, but also in Kandahar, Herat and Jalalabad, 9 previously unused Afghan accounts of this war. And the most amusing, and certainly the one that reads most rippingly, is Mirza Atta account. Mirza Atta is a young Afghan nobleman from Shikarpur, which is now in Pakistan. And he starts off as a fan of Shah Shuja, who gets disillusioned and goes over, as so many people did. And this is his account of the beginning of the uprising. It happened by God's will that a slave girl of Abdullah Khan Achakzai ran away from his house to the residence of Alexander Burns. When on inquiry, it was found out that that was where she had gone, the Khan, beside himself with fury, sent his attendant to fetch the silly girl back. The Englishman, swollen with pride, cursing and swearing, had the Khan's attendant severely beaten and thrown out of the house. The Khan then summoned the other nobles and said, "Now we are justified in throwing off the English yoke. They stretch the hand of tyranny to dishonour private citizens great and small. Fucking a slave girl isn't worth the ritual bath that follows it. But we have to stop right here now, otherwise the English will ride the donkey of their desires into the field of stupidity. I put my trust in God and raise the battle standard of the Prophet. And thus we go to fight. If success rewards us, then it is as we wished. And if we die in battle, then it's better than to live with degradation and dishonour." The other nobles, childhood friends, tightened their belts, girt their loins, and prepared for jihad. And off we go. So Burns is hacked to death in the street. He has only 7 guards with him. He thinks he's safe, and that's the end of him. The following week, Sir William Macnaghten goes out to negotiate with the resistance, and he's just shot dead by Wazir Akbar Khan, who's the son of Dost Muhammad. The British managed to lose their entire food supplies and ammunition supplies within the first week. And the man, by all these cantonments which had been built in the valley. You can still see the tents sitting there hopelessly beneath these peaks, surrounded on all sides. The Afghans just pull their artillery up onto the hills and fire down into the cantonment. It's a complete non-starter as a strategic position, and it clearly isn't going to work. And it particularly isn't going to work because the man in charge is this man, who's called Sir William Elphinston, who is riddled with gout because he's drunk too much port, who hasn't seen action since Waterloo 40 years before. He climbs onto his horse the first day, he falls off the horse falls on him, and that's that. So it's time to pack up and go home and surrender. And the British, in due course, after eating their last foxhound, and Lady Sale cooking her last meal on the grand piano, which has now been cut up and used for firewood, surrender, are allowed only to take their small arms with them back to India. But they are promised by Wazir Akbar Khan, the resistance leader, that they will be quite safe and that these gentlemen will honour all their promises and they won't be touched on the way home. And it's quite obvious these guys are completely trustworthy. And anyone with any sense would give their mother and daughter to them for safekeeping. Well, rather them than me. So they set off on the 6th of January, 1842. And it's been an unbelievable blizzard for the previous 3 days. And it's the coldest Kabul winter for 30 years. 4,500 troops still left in the Kabul cantonment. 700 of them white Europeans, the rest sepoys from UP and Bihar. 12,000 camp followers trek out with them. At 9 a.m., this is the account of someone called George Lawrence. At 9 a.m., the troops moved off, a crouching, dispirited, drooping army, so different from the smart, light-hearted body of men who arrived here 18 months ago. The men sank a foot deep into the snow with each step, and my heart sunk within me under the conviction that we were a doomed force. Among the people in the retreat is my great-uncle, this rather dashing fellow here, called Colin Mackenzie. And he left a wonderful account that we have in the family archive, and he describes how this is rewritten by his wife from his diaries. Colin always remembered as one of the most heart-rending sights on that humiliating day, fixing his eyes by chance on a little Hindustani girl, perfectly naked, sitting in the snow, with no mother or father near her. She was a beautiful little girl, about 2 years old, just strong enough to sit upright, with her little legs doubled underneath her, and hair curling in soft locks around her soft little throat, and her great black eyes, dilated to twice their normal size, fixed on the armed men, the passing cavalry, and the strange sights that met her gaze. Many other children as young as innocent he saw slain on the road, and the women with their long dark hair wet with their own blood. The rear guard had to fight the whole way to the first night's camp at Bagrami, and pass through a literally continuous line of poor wretches, men, women and children, dead or dying from the cold and wounds, who, unable to move, entreated their comrades to kill them and put an end to their misery. The Afghans who are with this force know how to survive. Again, the British managed to lose their supplies on the first day. The Ghazis, the jihadis, run off with the tents on the first day. More an act of looting than a strategic taking of the shelter. Nonetheless, it has the effect that the entire army has to sleep out without any covering for the rest of the retreat. And the Afghans who are with the British at this point, because there are several regiments of Afghan snipers who come with them, know what to do. They light a fire. They clear the snow in a circle. They light a fire in the middle. Then they fan out in a circle like the petals of a flower with their feet facing the fire. They put all their cloaks and all their clothes on top of them so that they can use each other's body heat to keep themselves warm. And they have a cold night, but they all wake with all their parts still intact in the morning. I mean, they go there. But the sepoys, who've never dealt with snow before and have no idea what to do in this circumstance, just sit down in the snow and wake up in the morning the following day to find their feet looking like charred logs of wood. They've got frostbite. They're not going anywhere. Also, if they haven't got gloves on, which most of them don't possess, then they find that their fingers have got frostbite too, and they can't even fire their muskets. So the cold, rather than anything else, has completely disarmed this army by night one. They are incapable of fighting. They can just about poke a bayonet at someone half-heartedly, but they're more or less completely crippled. They move off the following day and are driven by the Afghans, who appear at dawn at the edge of the camp, into the funnel of the Kurd-Kabul Pass, which is still this terrifying pass on the outskirts of Kabul, just behind what's now Kabul Airport. As you come into Kabul Airport today,